Welcome in, everybody, to another episode of the Most Accurate Podcast. I am your host, Addison Hayes, joined, as always, by one of the most accurate people in all of the fantasy community for rankings and projections, John Paulson. John, how are we doing on this fine morning as we head into week 3?
Well, I'm back from my trip to Green Bay, which went swimmingly. Flights were all on time. The Packers kicked ass. My son was a pleasure to be around for a full 2.5 days. We didn't get into a single argument. Completely engaged with the game, yelling and screaming. So it was nice to see. It was a good trip and back for week 3 sneaky starts.
Yes. Yeah. So if this is your first time tuning in, we each have 2 players. Well, we each have a player, so for a total of 2 players per position. So 8 total players today that we're going to run through and identify as sneaky starts on the week. We've been, I would say, fairly successful with this over the first 2 weeks. Last week was a little rough, I think. Some of the games did not go my way specifically. And then we also end with a Bleacher Nation fantasy card, which is our new game that we have under the Bleacher Nation fantasy app that is very similar to Prize Picks. So we each give a leg for that one, that if you wanted to tail and match us on that, hopefully win some money. I think we went 0 for last week, though. I think we went 0 for 3 on all of our props. So they should give you your money back if you do that.
You'd rather lose. If you're going to lose, you'd rather lose all 3 and then have win 3 the next week or whatever. So I've learned that.
That's fair. I think I just find it equally as unlikely that you don't hit any of them as you do hit all of them. So yeah, I find that impressive on our end that we didn't hit any. Anyway, let's get into the sneaky starts on the week. We start with the quarterback position, and John, why don't you kick us off here with your quarterback sneaky start?
Yeah, I'm going to this Bears Cowboys game. Cowboys game in Chicago. Pretty high total, and both defenses are kind of suspect. So I like Caleb Williams this week. He's actually done pretty well fantasy wise because he's running the ball as well. He's the QB 10 through 2 weeks, 85 rushing yards and a touchdown as a runner, which gives you a good floor. The Cowboys have given up the 3rd most fantasy points to quarterbacks so far, 283 passing yards per game, 9.4 yards per attempt. The Dallas offense is also rolling, so this has like a sneaky shootout to it, and I think Caleb will deliver.
I do like Caleb Williams' performance that he had last week. Certainly looked a lot better than what he did in week 1 against the Vikings. Obviously, Romeo Doubs seems to be coming out, having his breakout season that a lot of us had hoped that he would. As Caleb Williams is more wide receiver 1, the weapons are still there. If we can get Colson Loveland some actual snaps and targets, boy, that would be tremendous. But yeah, Caleb Williams with the passing that he's giving you, the rushing upside that he has as well. I definitely like that call a lot. So my quarterback sneaky start, I'm going back to it. I mentioned him last week. We hit on that call last week with Drake Maye against the Miami Dolphins. Now Drake Maye gets a home matchup against the Pittsburgh Steelers, which apparently the Steelers defense just sucks now. They made all these different moves, went out and traded for Jalen Ramsey, and now they just suck. So I'm going to attack it for this week. They gave up 29 points to Justin Fields in week 1, 18 fantasy points to Sam Darnold last week. Drake Maye, as I mentioned, had a big game against the Dolphins in week 2. He had 26 fantasy points then, 16 fantasy points in week 1 in a loss to the Vegas Raiders. So I'm kind of viewing that as through 2 weeks, 16 to 26 points. It's a nice 10-point range where that's kind of like, I think, your floor and your ceiling for Drake Maye in this matchup against the Steelers, with hopefully the median or the average outcome being somewhere in and or above 20 fantasy points with his rushing upside, the passing upside that he has as well at home. So I am going back to the Drake Maye call at the quarterback position.
I like it. I have him ranked as a low-end QB1 this week at QB11 right now. Couple spots behind Caleb, and then Kyler Murray ahead of Daniel Jones and Jordan Love. So I think he's a good quality low-end QB1. You made a good point about the Steelers defense. It's just not good right now.
There's a lot of injuries on the team as well. That just I think it was our first round pick is injured. Alex Highsmith got injured, and there's a couple other guys that I'm wondering if that's contributing, or they just might actually just be bad. I'm not sure.
Well, the Patriots' pass defense is bad too, so this is another one with kind of a sneaky shootout potential as well. So I think all the players here are interesting.
Before we move on, I want to call a quick audible off of our show sheet real quick because it kind of reminded me because I got a Bleacher Nation fantasy alert about Jaden Daniels that Cliff Kingsbury didn't have an update about Jaden Daniels, but he said that they have full confidence in Marcus Mariota. And I think one interesting question for this week specifically, with the number of quarterbacks that are now currently injured, we have a bunch of backup quarterbacks coming into play this week. So depending on if you had one of those injured starters, you might be interested in one of these backups that has kind of come out when we're talking about, Mac Jones got the start last week. We've got Jake Browning versus Carson Wentz in a matchup this week. Marcus Mariota might apparently start. Tyrod Taylor is going to start for the New York Jets. I feel like I'm even missing somebody at that point, but we have a lot of backup quarterbacks going on right now. And I feel like a sneaky start section for this week around backup quarterbacks might just be an interesting, quick little discussion. Do you have any strong feelings about sneaky starts for any of these kind of backup quarterbacks this week?
Yeah, I mean, I wrote up both Jake Browning and Mac Jones. It looks like Brock Purdy might play, so I'll just talk about Browning, and anybody that's interested in Mac Jones can go to the Sneaky Starts article. But Browning had, he came in a part-time role last week at 60-70% of the snaps, had 241 yards and 2 touchdowns. In 7 starts back in 2023, he averaged 267 yards and 1.57 passing touchdowns. He added 12 rushing yards and 0.43 rushing touchdowns per game. So he averaged in those 7 starts 19 fantasy points. The Vikings pass defense was bad last year. They've been better this year. I don't know if that's just it's a 2-game blip and, based on who they played and all that. Maybe it's, it was Atlanta. They lost it to Atlanta at home and then they beat the Bears on the road. I don't know if the Vikings defense has really turned it around or if it's going to be a kind of a bad pass defense again. But I like Browning at the best of these sort of backups that you mentioned. I have him at 18 and Mac Jones at 19, and then Carson Wentz is down there at 26.
Awesome. Yeah, so I definitely think some of them are a lot more viable this week, especially depending on your actual league. And if you're in a league where, like 7 or 8 people stash backup quarterbacks on their bench and your waiver wire might be a little thin and you're like, do I want Rodgers? Do I want Browning? Do I want Wentz or any of those guys? So good to know real quick. I think that could be helpful to some people. So moving on to the tight end position. Do you want to kick us off on tight end sneaky starts?
Sure. I went with the same game that I did for the quarterback, except I went with the Cowboys tight end, Jake Ferguson. There's a number of pretty good streamers this week at tight end position, but he had 12 targets last week. He has 18 on the season. That's the second most to Jauan Johnson. Who would have thought we'd have Jauan Johnson and Jake Ferguson as the top 2 targeted tight ends, but we do. Here we are. He's tight end 10 through the 2 weeks. He's catching passes from Dak Prescott, who's playing pretty well. Dallas's defense is struggling for all the same reasons I like Caleb Williams. I like Jake Ferguson as well. I think this is there's going to be some touchdowns scored in this one. He might get one.
I have him started in a league where I have to sit Mark Andrews. Now we've gotten to this point with Andrews. It's a dynasty league. I've had Andrews for like 5 years. He's served me well, but I think it's time to move on. So Jake Ferguson has now entered the lineup for all the reasons that you just laid out, especially after his performance last week. My tight end sneaky start is Harold Fannin, who draws a matchup against the Green Bay Packers, who seem to be like the best defense in the entire league. I am terrified of mostly anybody moving forward playing against the Green Bay Packers, but I do think Harold Fannin could be in an interesting spot this week based on his performance and usage over the past 2 weeks. He's the current tight end 8 in full PPR leagues. He had 13.5 and 9.8 PPR points the last 2 weeks. And surprisingly, though, the Packers, for as great of a defense as they have been, They have been a little bit susceptible to the tight end position. Sam Laporta was the leading receiver for Detroit in week 1. He had 14 PPR points. Zach Ertz last week with the touchdown got to 18 PPR fantasy points. So it looks like, if Green Bay is going to be shutting down everybody on the outside, all of their wide receivers, they're getting pressure up the middle, especially now with Micah Parsons seeming like he's going to start getting full-time snaps. The opposing offenses are going to need to, get the ball out quickly, short range passes, and that seems to be kind of Harold Fannin's usage right now. I think Njoku's a solid start as well because they're both kind of splitting everything. But Harold Fannin, a guy that you picked up off of waivers or might have survived waivers until this week, if your league didn't necessarily believe in his production, I think is a guy that could get thrown right into your starting lineup in week 3 if you need it.
Yeah, I was thinking about this Cleveland offense with Joe Flacco after watching some of the snaps against the Ravens and how quickly the Ravens were getting pressure on him, and he has like no mobility. So it's going to be interesting to watch the Packer pass rush against Joe Flacco. And yes, I think it's a good idea for him to get the ball out quickly if they can somehow figure out how to do that.
Yeah, I was watching that game with my buddy, and I joked with him. I said that Joe Flacco has to have like a negative Madden rating for speed or escapability or anything.
He's funny because he's so slow to get started, and then when he does get going, he's got that long stride. But at this point in his career, he's not even close to being fast.
Running back, sneaky start. John, I like your play a lot here, and have him going in a few leagues myself, dynasty leagues or other redraft leagues. So why don't you kick us off with a running back sneaky start?
Yeah, this is typically the type of player that draws ire on Twitter or Blue Sky or wherever, and people complain that this player is not sneaky at all, and how can I call him a sneaky start? And we get into a giant back and forth about what a sneaky start is, and it's my article, and I invented it, in my opinion, and I can do whatever I want with sneaky starts. They are players that are being ranked higher this week than in other weeks, and perhaps higher than consensus because of injuries or something else going on or expanding roles, whatever. In this case, it's the Aaron Jones injury in Minnesota. This is why we drafted Jordan Mason, playing alongside a aging, injury-prone, very talented Jones, but misses time, and he's missing time now, and this is why you start and why you drafted Jordan Mason. He's a low-end RB1 in my opinion this week. I've got him ranked at 11 or 12. In those first few games, I guess it was 7 healthy games with McCaffrey sidelined last year. He averaged 18.3 carries for 95 yards, 0.43 touchdowns, while adding about 12 yards as a receiver on 1.5 carries. He got 1.7 targets per game. Wasn't really heavily used as a receiver there, but the Vikings have been talking up his pass catching ability this summer. So I don't know if we'll see him running some of those Jones routes, but he certainly has rushing upside in this offense this week against the Bengals. Bengals defense has been pretty suspect. I think Mason will have a really nice day, and I wrote up his prop play too. And when I started writing it up, it was at 70.5, and by the time I finished writing sneaky starts, I double checked it, and it was at 75.5. So somebody else had the same idea. He beat that number 5 times in the 7 healthy starts last year, so I think that's a pretty good play as well. Jordan Mason.
I like it a lot. And I like that you could just clarify that it's like, yeah, Jordan Mason's probably a start for everybody, but it's like, how confident are you in him actually as a starter? And he does look like he's set up for a very tremendous week. He did have 3 targets last week against the Falcons. So I'd be interested to see if he does get a little bit more of that Aaron Jones usage, which could help his floor and ceiling if he's utilized in the receiving game. And then also getting, 75, 80, 90, maybe even breaks 100 on the ground, which he's done multiple times last year. Different offense, but can still easily do it against a bad defense. My sneaky start for the running back position this week is Rhamondre Stevenson, tailing with my sneaky start for Drake Maye at the quarterback position, and targeting this now bad Steelers defense that also kind of seems to be a little bit of a run funnel. They allowed 16.5 points to Breece Hall week 1, 19 points to Kenneth Walker last week. They both went over 100 rushing yards. Kenneth Walker got the touchdown. Stevenson, as much as we all love Travion Henderson and loved him in August, Stevenson has been the RB1 for this Patriots team both weeks to start the year. He looked great against Miami last week, including having 5 catches for almost 90 yards. I personally, I do think that Travion is startable if you drafted Travion in the 4th or 5th round and you don't really have anybody else better. I think Travion could get it done on efficiency with lower volume still this week, just with how bad the Steelers defense has been. But Rhamondre is the play, I think, for the volume that he's going to get against the bad defense. And if he ends up finding the end zone, then that's just going to make your day even better.
Yeah, it's interesting how these highly touted rookie running backs who typically have a lot of success in year one. I mean, we did a study about breakouts and stuff, and year one for running backs is the leader in terms of when they break out. And, Henderson's going in the 4th, 5th round. I saw him going in the 3rd round in some drafts. Hampton going in pretty solidly in the 3rd or 4th round. RJ Harvey, maybe 5th, 6th round. These rookie running backs do not have big roles yet. Genty's the only one that's really leading their respective backfield. I guess Hampton is sort of, but he's splitting time with Najee Harris. So it's been a rough go so far. I like the Stevenson call, though. I've got him inside the top 30 for the first time. He has handled 25 of the team's 48 backfield touches, but this is a little tricky because you also have Antonio Gibson getting a total of 7 touches through 2 weeks. So it's hard to really trust any of these guys. I think it's probably going to be a hot hand situation for a lot of these backfields. If the rookie starts running well, then all of a sudden you see the script flip.
So moving on, the last position, the wide receiver position, John. I see. I don't know if this is homer. I'm not going to call it homerism, but I do like the call based on what happened last week. So who's your wide receiver sneaky start?
Okay, so obviously it's a Packer. I don't know what's really going on with Matthew Golden. Through 2 weeks. I mean, I think it's not like a death knell to his career or anything like that, but they are not utilizing him the way that I think a lot of fantasy folks thought they would based on his preseason, the buzz around him. So I'm still like optimistic about him long term, but as far as rankings and telling people to start him, I'm waiting to see some like actual production on the field and actual at least targets. I think he had 2 targets last week, and one of them was a near miss on a bomb. So we could, if he had caught that and scored, we could be talking about it in a very different way. And I think LaFleur is smart enough to get him going. But in the meantime, it seems like Jordan Love trusts Romeo Doubs, Dontavian Wicks. I wrote up Doubs. I wrote up both of them. And with Jaden Reed out, you're just going to see these guys on the field a lot. Wicks has kind of gotten over his drops. He had 4 catches for 44 yards last week and was getting open pretty much at will. He's always been a really good route runner. Doubs is the contested catch guy. They like him around the end zone. So that's why I think as a sneaky start, he's got some appeal. This is a pass funnel Browns defense. They have a really good rush defense. I don't know if they're 2nd or 3rd in rushing yards allowed. I think the Packers are going to have to throw the ball in this one. If they want to move the ball consistently, they're going to try to run Josh Jacobs, but if it doesn't go well, they're going to have to pass the ball to move it. And that just means more targets and yards available for these guys. And I'm hopeful that Golden gets going, but I have more confidence in Doubs and Wicks this week.
I was going to ask you about Dontavian Wicks because it seems like he is, Dobbs was already playing a lot of snaps when Reed was healthy, but now that with Reed out, you would assume that Wicks would be the one filling in for a lot of snaps as well. As in 3 wide receiver snaps, as if it's Golden and Dobbs, and then Wicks comes in. So I'm glad you mentioned on him too, because I think that he could also be a sneaky start, which apparently you agree with as well. I don't know if you're actually that desperate for it though. It's hard to trust any Packers wide receiver, and honestly, it just gives me more confidence in Tucker Kraft. But if you are in a pinch, I think they're both pretty solid names. My wide receiver sneaky start that John will like as well is Jauan Jennings versus the Arizona Cardinals. He had a monster game last week, 5 for 89 and 1, coming off of the injury And I don't think we really expected him to have the type of performance that he had while barely practicing at all leading into that game. But then he did. And I expect more of the same this week against the Arizona Cardinals. The Cardinals defense has been iffy against wide receivers. I don't know if it's mainly just garbage time stuff or if they are actually below average against the wide receiver position. Bryce Young threw for over 300 yards and 3 touchdowns last week. Spencer Rattler threw the ball 46 times in week 1. Wasn't all that efficient with it. A lot of it went to Jauan Johnson, but then Chris Olave also got like 13 targets, put up 12 PPR points. So I think with George Kittle out, and whether it's Mac Jones or Brock Purdy, I don't think it necessarily matters. Shanahan seems to use them both pretty interchangeably, and he has that trust in Mac Jones if he were to still be starting. But either way, I think Jauan Jennings seems like he is more of the wide receiver 1 than Ricky Pearsall right now. And especially with George Kittle out, they're just going to need people to, make plays with the ball in their hands. And I think Jauan Jennings is pretty good, and I think that he's going to be a good start this week.
I like it. I didn't write him up, but I probably should. Got him at wide receiver 24 this week. It was great to see him. And he was like one of my favorite early draft targets. Right after I did projections, he's the one that really popped, and he was, going. I had him around 25, I think, and in the draft rankings at the start of draft season, and he was going wide receiver 45 or something. So it was a major difference in my ranking and projection versus what the industry was saying. And then obviously he had all that summer where everything just kind of, his value just got beat down because he was holding out, supposedly had a calf injury, and he just started to get bad vibes. He, wanted to be traded, and how's this all going to work out? But it was great to see him catch that touchdown last week. And you mentioned the Cardinals defense. They're sort of like middle of the pack, maybe, a little worse than average in terms of the yards allowed to the receiver position. It's 320 through 2 games, 2 touchdowns. But interestingly, they've given up the most targets, 60, to opposing wide receivers this year. And that resulted in the most receptions to receivers so far in 2 games, 34, which I just thought that was interesting given the fact that they were sort of middle of the pack in terms of yards allowed so far. It's going to be interesting next week when we roll out our strength of, hotspots, strength of schedule numbers for this year, because right now we're still using the numbers from last year. We like to get 3 weeks of data before rolling out this year's data. And so week 4 is always hotspots week, AFPA week at 4 for 4. And we're starting to use 2025 data, which is always exciting.
So those are our sneaky starts, 8 total players, 2 each at all 4 of the positions to maybe see if you can get into your lineup or have more confidence in if you are throwing them in your lineup already. So we're going to move on. We do have a Bleacher Nation fantasy card that we wanted to play. I have mentioned this 2 weeks in a row that if you liked all of our sneaky starts and you wanted to bet the over on or bet the more on their yards, you can 100x your entry on all 8 of these plays. If you wanted to do that, turn $1 into $100. I still want to see if that happens at any point this year. It would be really, really fun. But as for today, we just have a 3-leg card. John and I each have a card in total, and then we also have 1 promo leg that Bleacher Nation is running. Before we get into that, though, I do want to let you guys know that they are currently running. This is an absolutely bonkers promotion that they're doing right now. It's a 100% deposit match up to $1,000. Minimum of $250, but up to $1,000. And it does require a 1x playthrough with the amount that you've deposited. But you will get a 100% deposit match. So that means if you deposit $1,000, play through that $1,000, you will then get another $1,000 in bonus money on Bleacher Nation Fantasy with the promo code MATCH when you sign up or when you deposit. This is for new and current users. So anybody could, sign up now if you are a new user or if you already have been playing and you want to throw more money into there. This is now the time to do it. This is an absolutely insane promotion that I haven't seen Underdog or Prize Picks or any sports books or anything like that do. It's It's pretty wild. So definitely take advantage of it right now. As for the 3-leg card that we're going to be doing, they are running a promotion on Sunday for the Sunday night game for Travis Kelce to get more than 6.5 receiving yards, which is an 89% discount on his usual leg to play in with the Taylor Swift 1989 number. So they slashed his receiving yardage prop by 89%. So he just needs more than 6.5, which, we don't call it a free leg, but in many ways it feels like a free leg. So that is leg number 1 for this 3-leg card. John, do you want to hit us with leg number 2?
Yeah, Zay Flowers is really playing well. 75 and 143 yards in the first 2 games. He was a funny guy in draft season because I ended up with him, even though I wasn't necessarily going into drafts targeting him, but he was just one of those real world wide receiver ones that was available in the 5th round. And I ended up with him in a couple leagues, and it's been fun watching him develop. If you look at his first 3 seasons, 77 for 858 as a rookie with 5 touchdowns. Last year, 74 for 1,059 yards. So his yards per reception jumped from 11 to 14. He had 4 touchdowns. So he's not a big touchdown guy, but he's been just the crucial part to this passing game, especially with Mark Andrews MIA right now at tight end. And then you've got DeAndre Hopkins, who comes in for a third of the plays and just catches touchdowns. But this year he's got Flowers has 14 catches, 7 in each game so far for 218 yards and a touchdown. He's already on pace for a better season, and just one of these young developing receivers who we're seeing maybe a 3rd-year triple breakout with him. The line is 63.5, which is lower than what it is I think at Prize Picks. So I like more than that. He's averaging 10 targets per game, and the Lions' rush defense traditionally has been a pass funnel. They are tougher against the run than they are against the pass. The Bears had good passing success last week against them. The Packers did as well. And, the Lions are a good enough team that they could potentially put up some points in Baltimore, and this turns into maybe a shootout. So I think he'll go over 63.5.
The fun thing about Zay Flowers is that they don't always need him, because sometimes games can just be Derrick Henry rushes for 200 yards and 2 touchdowns, and then that's just kind of it. Or Lamar's doing his thing as well. But boy, when Lamar has to throw, man, is that so much fun for everybody, because usually that means it's a fun game where Derrick Henry is doing his thing, but then we're also getting Zay Flowers to go over 100 yards, or last week it was Tylan Wallace and Devontae Walker that that got touchdowns. It was fun for me. I was in on both those guys as rookies, as day 3 picks, so it was fun for me to see them, but they're not actually relevant. But in a game against the Lions where they probably are going to have to throw, that's really good things for Zay Flowers. My leg for this to round out this 3-leg card is Bijan Robinson, more than 81.5 rushing yards. It feels like a slightly high number to get to 80, but Bijan hit this in both games against the Panthers last year. He had 95 yards and then 170 yards in the 2 games against Carolina in 2024. Just now coming off of a week where he had 143 yards last week against the Vikings, and just did whatever he wanted to do against Minnesota. And with how bad the Carolina run defense is, I think that he's going to be able to do whatever he wants to do against them. Atlanta wants to run the ball. They have one of the lowest passing rates over expectation, or passing rates in neutral situations. One of the 2 stats they're really low in, or maybe both, because they just want to run the ball. And I would want to as well if you have a player like Bijan Robinson, and against the Carolina defense, 81.5 rushing yards seems like a good number for him to hit the more on. So are you going with that one?
I'm fine with that one. That's for sure. Against the Panthers.
Perfect. Yeah, he's going to crush them. He scored four touchdowns against the Panthers in 2 games last year too. So Bijan's in for a fantastic week. So that is our Bleacher Nation fantasy card. It is the promo leg of Travis Kelce, more than 6.5 receiving yards. Zay Flowers, more than 63.5 receiving yards. And Bijan Robinson, more than 81.5 rushing yards. You can throw those 3 plays into a card. You get a 6x payout. And especially if you take advantage of that deposit match, this card can help you with your 1x playthrough to then get the deposit bonus. And hopefully it hits, and then you win more money. So that will be it for today's episode of the Week 3 Sneaky Starts and the Bleacher Nation Fantasy card that we throw in at the end of every single week. We appreciate you guys so much for listening and tuning in. Make sure to hit that like and subscribe button, whether you're on YouTube or any of the podcasts that you are listening to this on. And we will catch you guys next week with Week 4 Sneaky Starts on the Most Accurate Podcast. See you.